CyberMaster fans. It's an odd time. It's Thursday. What's going on? The show is usually on Wednesday. Well, I have a special friend and guest with us today, CyberMasters with Ed Notella, introducing Ken Pischel. Say hello, my friend.
Hello. How are you doing, Ed?
Excellent. Good. Please, a little bit closer to the mic if you don't mind. And you can move this around if you want. Mm-hmm. So, we're having a special show today. There's a lot going on with cybercrime. It's really escalating to extremes over the last couple of weeks. Ken will introduce himself in a moment. He's a financial wizard, and really concerning because the cyber attacks you see today are happening in small, medium, and large businesses across the board. It's like no one is safe. Ken Pischel, tell us about yourself. How are you?
I'm good. Been very busy.
What do you do? What do you do?
Working as a fractional CFO. We have bookkeeping services as well.
What's a fractional CFO?
A fractional CFO, a lot of these small to medium-sized, closely held businesses need that expertise in driving their business forward from a financial standpoint, planning, keeping the profit in the business, and
why fractional and not full-time?
Well, a lot of these small to medium-sized businesses can't afford a full-time CFO. A full-time CFO can cost them $150,000, $200,000 a year.
Where fractional is paid per use, or when you need someone.
Exactly, right. For a couple $1,000 a month, $2,000-$3,000 a month, $1,000 a month, not even on their payroll. They get the guidance and the deliverables that they need.
What does a fractional CFO do as compared to someone who's there full-time? Are the duties different?
I think the duties are a little bit more segmented because fractional CFO is not there every day. I do speak and touch my clients with a text, email, or phone, or in person at times, or Zoom.
Usually, you're available all the time.
Usually at least once, twice, sometimes 3 times a week.
Wow.
But at the same time, I'm not there 8 hours a day every day.
Gotcha.
So
you're not part, but they use you as you need to. How long do those engagements last? Do they go years at times?
They do go years at times. I think my average engagement is probably about 3 years.
Wow.
A lot of times I'll get hired for a project. We'll get hired for just an initial 3 to 6 month thing, and then it just extends. Some of them don't, some of them do.
I got to assume that you're training somebody who will be there full-time ultimately, so you're constantly working yourself out of a fractional job, if you will, right?
I say there are good endings and bad endings, right? and those are good endings when they happen. Usually, they don't need a full-time me until they get, at least past the $20 million a year mark.
They get to a certain size.
They get to a certain size and a certain need. And honestly, I've been offered some of those jobs on occasion. I've declined. Sometimes we find that replacement and he'll stay on in a smaller advisory role. Or sometimes I've been hired just to train this young person with potential to get him to the next level.
How do you feel when that happens? How does that grab you when you know you're just training somebody with your tools?
You know what?
And one day be like, oh, I know how to do this, but it was something you had taught them.
It's all about bonding and relationships, really. It's like it's almost like watching your child grow up.
Yes.
You completed your objective. You built solid relationships, and you got to watch this person with all this potential become this individual that they weren't 2, 3, 4 years ago.
Yeah, I gotta be honest with you, we do the same thing. So we train lots of CIOs. There's no holding back. Let them be as successful as you can. It's just wonderful to see, right?
It's fun. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
And you know what? You do the right thing by people. They either want to keep you around because they trust you, even if it's a smaller way, or their friends who own businesses need somebody and they send you over that way. And it just, like I said, good karma brings good results.
It brings to mind something interesting. So is it possible that a fractional CFO may have a better understanding of security than somebody who's been there for many years? What do you think about that?
I think that security is a hot and ongoing topic that's constantly changing. And for us financial professionals, it's a challenge all the time.
Well, you're lucky you have friends like us, but what does everybody else do?
Well, they either need to find you or somebody just as good as you, if there is somebody out there just as good as you.
If you look at the landscape of hacking and the amount of money that's been paid out and people have been damaged, I almost get a sense that a lot of stuff has been sold and a lot of promises have been made, but the bad guys have been getting through. Why is that happening?
The bad guys always get through because the good guys live by rules and regulations and the bad guys don't. That's why there's crime. That's why there are guns on the street that shouldn't be on the street. Okay? The good guys who register their guns and go by the law, they have all these restrictions. The guys that don't, they have the advantage. There's
okay.
It's just the way it works.
Gotcha. Interesting. So I also imagine as a fractional CIO, you're staying up to speed with the current stuff. Is there a chance or a risk that a CFO who's been at a company for a long time is not as agile as someone who's fractional?
I think it depends on the individual. I think that, if you have that CFO that's been there 10, 20, 30 years, everybody's human nature to get set in your ways. And so instead of becoming proactive, you become reactive because you have your routines. I think when
is it the best thing for an internal CIO to kind of work with fractional CIOs to keep himself sort of up to speed with the latest, if you will? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm always trying to learn in all areas. I always tell my clients, I said, the day I stop learning is the day I'm useless to you.
Yes, of course.
So, even for me, on the cybersecurity end, it's a challenge because I'm not a technology expert. I know what I know. Of course, you try to grow with the times and you try to gain that knowledge and that understanding. But look, I'm a financial professional. I know finance. I know operations.
Yeah, but since I've known you, you have always had a keen eye for making sure things are secure beyond other financial folks that I've dealt with. So you've always cared more.
Because I like you said, I do try to learn. So I know enough to be dangerous so I can identify the issues or at least have a map or a situation in my head that I feel like it needs to be addressed in a certain way. But then I'm going to call you, Ed, and I'm going to say, Ed, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm envisioning. What do you think? And then I'm going to take in everything you have to say, and which is probably going to be a whole lot more and maybe very different than what I'm thinking. But I know enough to recognize what needs to be done and have a general idea of what needs to be done. Getting it done and really kind of rounding out that final 20, 30% that I can't really grasp. That's all.
What does this internal CFO learn in this direction from working with you? What are they getting around security and technology when they hire a fractional CFO?
Well, I think what they're getting, first of all, is a fresh look of eyes and somebody who's going to be open to doing things differently than the status quo. And that's always the biggest thing.
Willing to work a little bit outside the box, maybe modernize, try things out. Yeah,
I am a fan of not trying to fix what's not broken, because God knows I can find enough broken things out there. But, in this case of cybersecurity, I don't think anybody ever fully catches up, especially in a small to mid-sized business, because it's a cost factor that they have trouble getting their arms around.
How does a CTO or director justify a test sandbox to the CFO? Hey, I'm the IT guy, and I need to buy another $100,000 worth of boxes so me and my friends can play and make sure what we have is okay. I mean, while that's completely logical to IT and technology, the CFO, you can have a test box you could play with. How does that grab you?
Yeah, I haven't seen that happen in the small to mid-sized business world yet.
Is that the problem? Because the sandbox and trial is what gets them through security. Is it a missing component?
It could be, but I think that, again, I think a lot of business owners are reactive rather than proactive. And if if they can't see a tangible return and the investment is large, they get nervous. So now it's about, okay, we have to approach this from a risk management standpoint, assess where we are, where we're vulnerable.
And allow the risk management
fix those
concept
things?
get you through that. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's really the way to get through to a lot of these owners. We spend a lot of time trying to build their empires and make them more profitable.
Yes.
And in so many different ways. But at some point that you're building, you need to protect what you built.
And it becomes a risk conversation, and that's how you justify the spend, if you will.
Exactly.
But it's so hard to justify Sandbox test equipment in so many places. You have to go back and sort of have soft cost numbers to show if you didn't have it, if you did have it, right?
Well, yeah, because I think a business owner, too, most business owners will have trouble envisioning, well, why is this Sandbox just for me? Right. Why can't somebody else pony up for that Sandbox? Or I'm going to pony up for the Sandbox and you'll be testing it and using it for 20 other companies.
Well, to be honest, look at what's happening. The American small business is the frontline defense for America against hackers. I mean, come on, it's sort of not fair, but the alternative would be, lockdown over internet, and that's not very, capitalistic. If you will.
No, it's not. It's not fair, and I think, but that seems to be happening more and more, where the burden is put on these small to mid-sized businesses,
Yes.
and not just for the cost of security, as we're speaking about, but the costs of employment. The cost of governance and compliance.
Good point.
And it just, it's like anything else. Whether it's a small, mid-sized business, or we're talking about it from an individual standpoint, it's the middle class.
Capturing the burden of all these things where perceivably in other countries they're part of the government, if you will,
Correct. Big business benefits. Small business doesn't always benefit. If you're speaking individual, the wealthy benefit, or in these times, for better or for worse, the lower income brackets benefit. But the middle class is always the class
working machine
with the squeeze. So the working machine, and they get the squeeze. And the small to mid-sized business is no different.
So I have to ask you an important question. Rich people paying their fair share. What does that mean?
Well, I just think that I don't think they should pay more than their share because they have money. They earn that money.
Politics say that wealthy people don't pay their fair share. I see that. Do you see that happening?
I think they have the means to figure out how to pay less than their fair share proportionately. For example, the middle class might pay 20 to 25%. Okay.
In taxes overall.
Exactly. The wealthy might pay 15%.
Okay.
And yes, the dollar figures are much larger because there's that much. They're so wealthy, but proportionately, people should all give back the same way, whether it's the low income, the middle income, or the high income. And I just don't see that.
So you agree that you do see that wealthy people are getting a little bit of unfair advantage by being able to work the tax group because of where they are and what they've done with their businesses. Although the other side of that, sometimes these wealthy people move into a region, they'll create these big businesses, everyone gets a job. Doesn't that have the value to take off 5 or 10% of their taxes?
That's the traditional argument, and I believe there is some truism to that. I totally do, but I also think that there's also some that are taking advantage of that. I mean, I don't want to use names at this point, but there are a few instances where grants have been given to some large companies coming into New York based on employment projections that haven't happened, and now some of that stuff is getting revoked.
Right.
And so you need to. So
right, because
I agree
then
with
tell
it,
the audience that when you build some of these projects, if you're not aware, and in most RFPs, you have to put a projection of how much hiring is going to happen from the project, and what how many people it's going to take, and what is driving there.
Right. So there's definitely merit to the argument that bigger business drives the employment and takes care of the working class.
Sure, but if a business does that,
but you have to actually deliver on the promise.
But is it always their fault they're not fulfilling? I mean, look at our region. There is quite a bit of young people moving out of the region, and politics says, oh, we're doing something about it, we're creating housing, and they buy into that, and it falls apart. Is it always their fault?
No. I'm not an extremist in any way, shape, or form. So I don't think it's always anybody's fault. I think sometimes it's their fault, sometimes it's not their fault. Every case is different. But and I'm all about the bottom line. Mm-hmm. I'm not about, Big Brother taking care of me or taking care of the next guy.
Right.
I've earned my keep. I do earn my keep. I pay my share, and so forth, and so do you. And to me, that's the way it should be, across the board, whether you're, like I said, low income or high income.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And I work with business owners. Of course, my job is to make them as profitable as possible and help them hold on to that money in the best way we can. And that's a big part of my job. So I do preach that, and I understand big business wanting to hold on to the money
as they can.
and hold on to as much as you can, because that's what business is. But don't make promises and if you make promises and make deals based on those promises, deliver on those promises.
Right, or justify, or ultimately justify why that couldn't be that way.
Or don't make the deal. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, yes. Interesting. How does New York and California compare up to the rest of the country when it comes to that kind of stuff?
I think New York and California are the two worst states to do business in.
Got it. We have so many people here, it's a tremendous population. It's very interesting. I had some friends move down south, and people think when you're in this region, this is what New York's about, this is what America's about. Far from it. America is so different region by region, right?
It is.
What do you think, man?
And I've gotten to see a lot more of that since the rise of Zoom.
The rise of Zoom, yeah.
Until then, I didn't have remote clients.
Yeah. And it's interesting, in this part of the region of the country, we have counties, we have towns. In Louisiana, they have parishes in a French form of government, and it's slightly different. I don't know if you were aware of that.
I am aware of that.
And the taxation and everything alters because of that, There's good and bad, but I don't think people are aware that governments are different throughout the United States in different regions.
Oh, yeah,
completely.
of course. I mean, yes, we have a federal government, but each state, they have their own rules. There are many states where there is no state income tax. We all know that too. So, in cost of doing business and the cost of making a living is a little cheaper there.
And then compound that with a cybersecurity attack happening from a foreign nation. Hackers from India that are brazen and want to literally see us dead, and no one's doing anything about it. Businesses are getting hacked. People are getting phone calls. I mean, isn't that a serious punch in the side as an American business owner?
I think that we've lagged as a government in our thought process on what keeping the country secure means. Traditionally, it was always the armed forces. You build up the Air Force, you build up the Army, you build up the Navy, and the Marines, and you go out there and you secure your places and your people. But we've learned over the last few years that a virus, or whether it be a virus from a hacker,
yes,
or a physical virus, can take down a country or an economy just as easy as blowing one up. And so I think, the government's always
so the cyber attack's a war. It's war.
It is war. To me, it is war.
Why isn't it considered war? I mean, what's happening out of Calcutta by the millions is considered war.
It is war, but I think that government is always the last to change. I think business is a lot more nimble and adjusts and grows in a much quicker way than government does. Government, as you know, it's stuck in minutia, administration, deal making, and everything else, and they do not, react as quickly. And they, to this day, I still don't think that Congress or the House, and even when it was under Trump or Biden, this was always my complaint, that neither party has taken this by the reins, is that they have not recognized cyber risk as a true war and threat to our country.
So you and I are, we participate in very high-end cybersecurity forums, Mark, our friend Mark, and it seemed under the previous administration, there were hundreds of cybersecurity teams that didn't work together. Administration changed, everything went different. It's the same thing now, so what's the difference? There's still hundreds of separate departments not working with each other. So going from Democrat to Republican or vice versa had no effect on that operation.
Of course, because you just said it like that right now. They're not working together. You could, whether it's business, and you have your operations and your technology, and you have your finance and your marketing. If they're not all pulling together to the same way, to the same place, it's going to be dysfunctional, and you're not going to get a result. The government, with all of these different departments not pulling together and not working together, again, it's dysfunctional. You're never going to get there. You worked in county IT
yes.
for 8 years.
I know.
And I remember what it was when you started and what it was when it ended.
Yes.
And it still never quite got to where you wanted it to be.
There's too much catch-up at once.
Exactly. For similar reasons on a smaller scale.
Interesting. So ultimately, leaving the cyber defense wall, if you will, in the hands of the small businesses is the only issue at this point. Because the other point would be like China, shut down internet or put a firewall for the whole country. What would that do to freedom?
Unfortunately, it is in the business's hands. But the small and mid-sized business owner, they can't afford to keep bearing the burden of all of this.
So these insurance policies and these cyber defense walls, these businesses have to buy firewall, security, training, insurance.
Yeah.
The government's not taking any responsibility for any of that.
It's not fair that the burden falls on them, and unfortunately it does, because they need to protect what they're building.
Right.
And it's a huge investment. And basically, even if you make them more profitable, the profit's going right back to something else.
Exactly.
And it's very frustrating, especially when it's not tangible to them, and many of them don't fully grasp it.
The lack of understanding on technology overall. Yeah.
It's very hard. It's very difficult to understand technology as a business owner who is not trained in that fashion, or a financial professional who's not trained in that fashion. And I will tell you why. Because I could have 3 different companies come in to solve a problem, and they will give us 3 different ways and explain why each of their way is the best. And me as a financial professional, or many business owners, don't have enough knowledge to discern who really knows what they're doing.
Yes, I agree. So we're currently working with a school, and we met a wonderful director there. And I checked in with him yesterday. Hi, Jeff. And I asked him how things were going, and it's going really well. And I said, of course it's going well, because we really care, and you're really easy to work with. Some directors, no problem. You're the fractional. Let me learn from you. Let's be together. Other people put up the hand in the wall. I really feel that if you're an internal director, allow fractional people in to give you the latest. Why are some people resistant to fractional help?
People are resistant to fractional help when they're either afraid of potential change because they're set in their ways and they don't want to open up their world or learn further, or they have something to hide.
Right, yes.
But now, a lot of the fractional CFO situations I get into usually don't have another CFO on board. They might,
Okay, you're the guy.
they might have a bookkeeper who's trying to do more than they're capable of.
Gotcha.
They might have a controller who's not a controller type that has the ability to make that leap, because the difference between a CFO and a controller is taking the numbers, putting them in the box, they're closing everything down, and they're giving you the reports every month. But they're not sitting there taking the reports and making assessments on what we should do next.
It's just the day-to-day
And that's what the
work.
CFO is. Now some controllers are able to take that leap from compiling everything.
Why? What makes them different? Motivation or training?
I think it's a combination of motivation, personality type, intellect. It's a combination of things. Some controllers don't want to. They just want to do what they do and be left alone.
Get through their day.
There are some that don't have the ability to see big picture. They're good at seeing what's in front of them.
And probably still are perfect for that company, even though they didn't see the big picture.
Give them a task. They know their job. They do their job. Don't make them think outside the box too much. And then there are others that have a vision, and those are the ones that make that leap. The ones that when I have been in a position, like I said, where I've had a controller and my job was to bring them to the next level, it's because that person had that potential and that vision.
Yes. And I call it friendliness. I don't know. Again, when I spoke with that particular director, there's a buy-in, there's a friendliness, there's an acceptance of the outside. Hey, we're doing this mission together. I'll love you before, middle, and after. I may never use you again, but we're a team while we're together. Why is it so rare in that happens,
Well, I think that somebody who's confident in their position and they have a vision and they know that this is what they need to take their situation to the next level, they're going to buy in. The ones that are afraid, like I said before, because they're afraid of what they don't know, and they're intimidated and they want to stay in their little box, or they know that there's things that are going to get uncovered that they don't want uncovered, they're going to be a little more resistant.
Don't those ongoing CRE credits help those financial people stay abreast of the latest, those continuing education courses? Well, what does that amount to for these accountants or CFOs?
To maintain your CPA, you need that. So,
but it's just a bare minimum.
It's a bare minimum, exactly. You take what you want to take to get it done. Some people actually learn from that and they bring it back and they're able to apply it, and other people are just doing it
as a formality.
As a formality to maintain their license.
Is there enough computer training and cybersecurity conversation in CREs today, in continuing education courses for financials today?
I think there's more and more. There's definitely a bigger focus.
It's climbing.
It's climbing. There's definitely a bigger focus on it. Because, again, and it's more about risk management than it is anything else. People look at it from a liability standpoint and the data that they're compiling and what needs to be protected and what doesn't, or the risk of them being hacked when their assets being frozen. But ironically, I feel like the liability risk of data protection and encryption is a bigger deal to them than the risk of actually being hacked and having their assets frozen.
So one of the issues we're running into is the data steward conversation. So modern insurance wants data classified, meaning this is your sales data, this is your accounting data. The CFO must assign someone who isn't from IT to be that role, and it's generally from a financial part of that company who becomes that data steward. There's a big lack of understanding, and these owners put an IT kit in place when that person is not a data understander. It's not somebody who understands what the purposes of that data.
No, they're just doing what they're asked to do. Okay, we need to compile this data in a certain way, go into the system, create these customize these reports that we have to export it into Excel, just pull all the data and get it into a form that we can get it.
How do
to the
you
insurance company.
tell your CFOs about the need of a data steward in their organization?
I mean, there aren't a lot of CFOs in the work of in the
Because it's
companies that
small.
I'm working on, because I'm really more than likely serving that role.
Oh, gotcha. It's a fractional person, which is
Right,
totally game.
exactly.
You can have a fractional person. You can have a fractional security person playing that role. That's totally game.
Right, and that's more the discussion I'm having with an owner is, and I'm actually using the IT company to help us.
But that makes a
Well-
lot of sense, Ken. So, again, you're a little cutting edge here because you recognize it's a financial person. You're using IT to make it happen, and the company's small enough that you'll play that role as a fractional CFO. That can't be done by a fractional computer person. It has to be by a fractional financial person.
Correct, and sometimes it's a joint project where I'm working with the outsourced IT company, such as yours, and I would work with you, and I would know what we need, and then we'd figure it out together. It'd be a joint project.
That's a really big part that's misunderstood. The separation of data and having somebody to care for their data is not an IT person and could be easily served through a fractional CFO type of person.
Yeah,
I mean, you got businesses around the world getting their butts hacked off to extreme degrees. Technically, they could engage a fractional CIO and cover their part-time financials as well as security in the same
correct,
breath.
correct. And
I don't think a lot of people recognize that, and they look for IT people for this, Ken.
because that's what they know. You're the closest thing to the expert there that they know.
Yes. But it's not real. There's got to be that separation. I would love to come and do a more detailed show about this subject, how internal people need to classify data and assign a security officer, whether it's a staff member or fractional CFO kind of person. It's really a kind of really important thing that we're not even emphasizing enough in this show, right? That separation of data. So in our clients, we make a big deal. We separate the phone system from the network. We separate departments away from each other. We have notifications if they copy data towards each other. It's such a key thing, yet clients continue to fail to tell us the actual classification of data. This is only accounting data. This is only sales data. In our company, we've separated the databases. They can't even be together, you know?
Right.
It seems like an excessive expense, but it's not expensive or any additional cost to operate that way.
But now, separation of data is a little bit opposite of what was preached, say, 10 years ago.
What do you mean, man?
When convergence of data was such a big thing.
And now insurance is asking for the separation of data.
Correct.
Oh, man. You're making a really strong point here. Yeah, it's the opposite of convergence. Well, yeah, yes and no. I guess when they came up with that, they didn't care about security much, Ken.
That is true. They cared about ease of use and operational efficiency.
And now it put them in the butt, and now it's security.
Correct.
How could Microsoft and the big guys not realize this was the future? Or did they and left it open as a business angle? That would be not very nice.
I do think it's the latter. I do.
Yeah, and the scary part about that is that we can't live without these boxes, with the possibility of knowing that security was left as an afterthought to create a business around us.
Yeah.
So, wow, so you really got to watch your butt, man. That's awesome. Ken, thank you. This is a great show. Do you want people to find you and reach out to you?
Yeah, we can do that. It's Dynamic Business Consultants.
Okay, Dynamic Business Consultants.
Fractional CFO or bookkeeping needs.
Okay.
And it can be reached at kpischel@gmail.com or
Excellent.
at 631-834-7919.
And I'll post your information in the show details later. And thank you, and please come back to talk about this further. I think data stewardship is a key element to overcoming these barriers. And I don't know what the future will bring. Will businesses continue to be the front line of cyber defense in America, or will the government step in the near future and take some of that burden off? And is that anti-capitalistic?
I think we're at least 4 to 5 years away before we see the government take a step, if they take it at all.
Gotcha. So we'll see aliens before.
Right.
Then.
Yeah. And the big question is, before I go, is how do you operate efficiently while separating your data, which would really slow you down?
That's that sandbox test area I was talking about. Right? I mean, think about it. You could test all this stuff out and do a conversion without feeling it.
That's true.
But you need multiple environments you'll have to pay for to make that a reality.
Yeah.
You know? Well, thank you very much. Another episode of CyberMasters. See you guys next Wednesday. Thank you. And to be continued, good friend Ken Pischel.
Thank you.